Good evening, everyone, to this public event, which is organized by the Master in Digital Fashion Communication. You might know that we organize several events during the year on the topics related to digital fashion communication, which is the events are usually mandatory for our students. It's part of their curricula, but we are happy to share their learnings and the opportunity that we have to invite guests from the outside with the public in Lugano. So we're happy that others are joining us, and thank you for being here in big numbers. I hope you will enjoy the event. So we'll have about 45 minutes presentation from our guest, and then we will open the questions and answer session. So prepare your questions and enjoy it. Thank you.
Grazie mille, Nazeia. So thank you so much. I'm very happy to welcome here Marina Spadafora. She's the president of Fashion Revolution in Italy. Her background, she has started designing collections herself, and hopefully you will teach us something about the collection you have prepared. But her motto is fashion with a purpose. So it's not just going on glossy newspapers or on nice Instagram accounts, but really reflecting on what you do and making sure that what you do is really meaningful. I want to take this opportunity also to thank the colleague Adin Gavazzi, and she's a common friend with Marina, and I want to thank you for bringing Marina here. So for us it's very important, like Marina was saying, to have an interactive session. So after her presentation and during, take notes, and so we have time to discuss together. So thank you so much for being here. The floor is fully yours. I will, I will be the light designer.
Thank you very much. Hello, thank you for being here. I know it's late. You could be out for a drink, but you're here, so I'm very pleased. Thank you very much. And thank you to the professor and my friend Adin for inviting me here.
Is it okay like this?
Yeah, I think so. You can see, right? You're not going to fall asleep, right? Okay, cool. So I'm here to talk about fashion, but a different kind of fashion which I call fashion with a mission. And it's been a journey for me, which I will explain during the presentation, because I started in the regular fashion industry. I started out as a designer with my own brand. Here we can see some moments from my fashion shows, and also photo shoots and campaigns done by prestigious photographers. I have a good eye for talent, so I was able to intercept Mario Testino, David LaChapelle, Enrique Badulescu, who happened to all be also my friends, and they took photos of my clothes and did my campaigns before they became unreachable. So I have this, and I'm very proud of it. Also, as you can see from the photos from the shows, I started out quite early, if you see in this photo here, to have the concept of inclusivity in my shows. So I would literally show my clothes on older women, beautiful older women. Here we have Benedetta Barzini, who's an iconic figure in fashion. Alec Weck, who's a beautiful model from Sudan, who was discovered on the streets of London and became this amazing supermodel. And she's fantastic because she has now her own NGO, and she helps young girls and people who want to come from Sudan and South Sudan to live in London. So they're all special people and very special to me. My specialty when I had my own collection was knitwear. So I'd say 30% of the collection was knitwear and the rest was woven. And the collection was all made in Italy. My family had a factory near Vicenza where we produced the clothes, so I consider myself extremely lucky. But before starting as a fashion designer, I had already moved to the States, where I lived for many years, and before launching the collection in 1989, I started as a costume designer in the film industry. And I must say that that was a fantastic experience, one of the hardest, the most fun jobs I've ever done. You work really long hours because you have to be on set before dawn, and you leave set well after dawn. And so I approached many different fields, always tied to the fact that I've always drawn. I know how to draw naturally. My father is also a very good drawer. So I was always attracted by fields that involve drawing and creativity. Some of my things were done by hand, by artisans near the area of Arezzo, and this is a macrame work that we used to do. We used to knit out these very thin tubes, and then these ladies would macrame them together. And this was also on the collection. After having my own collection, I also consulted as a senior design consultant for many luxury brands. The first experience was with Ferragamo, a fantastic company, great family that still runs the company. I remember meeting Wanda Ferragamo, the widow of Salvatore Ferragamo, who at the time when I was there was already 80 plus, and she would be the first one in the office and the last one to leave. And so my experience in Florence with Ferragamo was absolutely positive. And also Ferragamo today is one of the main luxury companies that produce a sustainability report every year, and they're really involved in sustainability, and they're trying to do their best. They were the first ones, for example, to use a very innovative fiber called orange fiber. I don't know if you guys know about it. It's a polymer that it's extracted from the leftover from the industry of making orange juice. So all the orange peels get processed, and you make actually a yarn that you can then spin and weave and make fabric. I had an experience with Prada and Miu Miu. From the point of view of the product, it was definitely like up my alley, because I loved all the things that they made, and the aesthetics of the company was definitely very close to my aesthetic. The best thing about Prada was that everybody designing and in the design team had something of an allowance every season. So we were given a big amount of money, and we would go to the shop, not even to the outlet, and get whatever we wanted. And that was the best part. The rest was a little bit tough, because working for these companies, it wasn't so much at Ferragamo, but at Prada, it was more like being part of a religion, of a sect, of something, because what happens is you work very long hours. You're there always after dinner, and then almost every weekend you're also involved, because things get changed last minute. You have a meeting with Miuccia on the Friday. She changes things, and so you have to work the whole weekend to present new designs for the week coming. So having 3 little kids wasn't exactly ideal. I actually saw them more when I lived in Florence, and my family lives in Milano, than when I moved back to Milano and I worked for Prada. So that this gives you the gauge of how intense work for this company is. I want to point out that there is a big gap between 2007 and 2017. What happens next in the presentation is I will show you what happened in those 10 years, and that it's still happening. Basically, and then I went back for a stint at Marni. Also, I liked the aesthetics of Marni, and it was a lot of fun. But my heart is really with making something meaningful with my professionality. I'm a designer. I know I recognize beauty. I know fibers. I know fabrics. I know textiles and manipulations. And what can I do with this besides creating beauty, creating fashion, and creating profits both for myself and for the company I'm working for? I've always had a very strong impulse to do something that would make the world a better place since I was very, very little. And so at a certain point, towards the end of my stay at Prada, I was not satisfied. It wasn't giving me anything that satisfied what I really wanted to do. And so I did something that I suggest everybody does, which I asked incessantly the cosmic energy to make me find projects that will make me express who I am, but also do good for the planet and for the people. I asked it so many times that eventually it happened. Usually it works like this. And so my first opportunity happened with this collection called Banouk. Banouk stands for Beautiful African Natural Unique Quality. The way this happened was a young entrepreneur that was working in Denmark, Mauro Pavesi. He was working at Lego and was a marketing person. And in Denmark, they have something very nice, which I think happens in a lot of northern countries, which is investment funds every year dedicate X amount of money to projects that are sustainable. And you can submit your project, and if you win quite a good amount of money, like about 25,000. But also, this investment fund was called IFU. They also help you develop your project. So this person won with the idea of creating a collection that was entirely done and produced in Africa and with organic and sustainable fabrics. But he wasn't a designer. He didn't know much about fashion. He just knew that he wanted to do this in Africa. So through friends, we met each other. And after my husband says, okay, you're okay, you can travel to Africa with my wife. In the beginning, he wasn't so sure, my husband. But then they met and it was okay. So we started going to different countries in Africa to find the production. And we noticed that in Ghana, in Kenya, in Tanzania, they have huge factories where basically in Africa they produce mass production of very simple items like chemist coat for Woolworth, etc., etc. So we needed to find smaller factories that were able to produce something, 30 pieces, 50 pieces. So the place where we found this was Ethiopia. And in Ethiopia, there's still, there is a heritage from Italian presence there, which happened in the late 1800s, and then again, unsuccessfully in the 1900s. They basically kicked us out very quickly, the Ethiopians. But we left some legacy. So there are some beautiful factories that produce, and they're still run by Italians. And I found here we are doing a show in Rome during an event which is called Alta Roma. Alta Roma is for the haute couture that is shown every year in Rome. And during the summer session, they also have a runway for ethical and sustainable projects. So we were invited to show in Rome. And I worked with amazing, amazing people. These on the left are the Crochet Sisters, and they're a group of nuns that basically do crochet all day long. And they knit, and they knit, and they knit. And so I met them during this period, and they knitted beautiful pieces for us. And then I got back to them to work with Moschino many years later. So the relationships that were built were fantastic. So this project, what I've done also in this presentation is I have put down what I think the Sustainable Development Goals that these projects go and help. So here, the management of natural resources, because I got all this fabric from in Egypt, from SECEM, which is this beautiful reality that does everything with biodynamic agriculture, which is the kind of agriculture that is taught by Rudolf Steiner, and I will explain that a little bit later. And also enhance global partnership for sustainable development, because I was coming from Italy, the production was all African, but then we produced and we sold in Europe, so there was partnership happening for sure. This is SECEM. SECEM is a beautiful story. It's an Egyptian doctor, a young doctor that graduated in medicine in Austria, and he came in touch with the teachings of Rudolf Steiner, that is the founder of the anthroposophical thought and school. And so he has a theory about agriculture, which is to treat the earth without chemicals, without pesticides, and also to sow the seeds depending on when the moon and the planets are moving in a certain direction. Because, and this is ancient knowledge, if you sow when the moon is rising, the plant will be stronger, and vice versa. So here, not only do they produce organic cotton and linen, and then they have a facility where they spin it and they weave it, but they also make, they have all kinds of vegetables that they ship to Europe. They make phytotherapy, so medicine made with herbs, and it's a beautiful, beautiful reality. So as far as SECEM, they really embody the SDGs because they have the management and use of natural resources. They protect children from abuse and exploitation, trafficking and violence. I'll go back to this, explaining why. They invest in rural infrastructure, agricultural research, technology, and gene banks, protect biodiversity and natural habits, improve early warning systems for global health risks. So going back to the children, the beautiful thing that I learned when I went to visit them was that when they first established this oasis, which is not far from the Nile, I read the book about the story of Ibrahim Abuleish, who's the founder of SECEM. And basically, he returned from Austria. He was a doctor. He was married to an Austrian lady. They already had kids. But his dream was to find a piece of land and apply this idea of biodynamic agriculture. So he bought something to dig very deep in the earth, and the earth looked like it was all rocks and sand. There was nothing looking too gorgeous. So he dug very deep, and he was able to find water. And when you go today to SECEM, it's this beautiful, thriving oasis of greenery and flowers and everything. So because he wanted to do this herbal medicine, he needed people to pick up the flowers, the arnica flowers, the chamomile, all the different medicinal herbs that are used. And also what he wanted to do, he founded a school within the oasis, and he had also a small ambulatorio medico, come si dice, like a medical facility, and he wanted to offer these services to the 13 villages that were around the oasis. So he set out to talk to all the chiefs of all the different villages and said, listen, we're starting this business, I want to help you, we have a school, I would love your children, for free to come to school. And in every single village, the elders and the parents said, forget about it. Our kids go to work every day, they pick vegetables and whatever in the fields because we have no money. We need money also from the kids. They don't have time to go to school. So he went back and he was like really torn, and he's like, what am I going to do? I mean, this is obviously a reality that these people are experiencing, and I want to offer them the only key to get out of the poverty cycle, which is education. What do I do? So he came up with a brilliant idea. He went back to the chiefs and he said, I'll make you a deal. Your kids will come to my plot of land and they will work picking flowers. They're called the chamomile children. And I will pay them a lot better than when they go out in the fields where you send them. But in exchange, you have to let them be here in the afternoon and go to school. And this way, he found a way to enter the local mentality, understand that the people needed the money, they needed to send the kids to work, which happens in so many countries in the world, it's not even funny, but he was able to wiggle that he could keep them to educate them. And I met these kids. They're beautiful. They wear these blue overalls, they have big straw hats, they have a big sort of cotton sack, and they go around and they pick flowers. And they get paid well, and then in the afternoon they learn and they become, computer engineers. They completely break the cycle of poverty. So Second was an amazing experience. So we sorted and sourced from them all the linen, all the cotton, and all the other things to make the collection. And then I was called by Cangiari. Cangiari in the dialect of Calabria means to change. And Cangiari is part of a big consortium called Goel, which is in an area in Calabria. Calabria is, if Italy looks like a boot, is the front part of the shoe. This area is called Locride, and the Locride has a lot of unemployment, but most importantly, it has a lot of 'ndrangheta, which is the worst kind of mafia you can find in Italy. So people are subject to a lot of pressure from these mafiosi, and Goel was born to give people an opportunity to work outside of the mafia circles. And so they have different activities. They have agriculture. They have they also have when there are refugees that come, let's say, from Palestine or other places, they have a whole system where they welcome them, they have places to put them, and they also, for example, made this beautiful little restaurant where Calabrese women and Palestinian women would cook together, and, and so all kind of businesses. This kind of business, the textile one, was because this area is a tradition of handlooms. So the idea was to use the handlooms and have the ladies, the artisans work. All the threads and all the yarns were absolutely certified, organic, and et cetera, et cetera. So I spent time with them. I designed the first 2 collections, but I'm still very close to them, and I help them with their communication and talking about the project. And the project is still going on, and they have a big sewing facilities where also Versace produces some of their clothes, because the Versace family actually comes from the same neighborhood. And here we're talking about protecting labor rights and promote a safe working environment, of course. Protect biodiversity and natural habitat by using organic and biological materials. Build knowledge and capacity to meet climate change, also by devoting the whole collection to organic and natural yarns, and also the management of natural resources. I mean, there isn't an SDG about combating mafia, but if there was, they would meet it. And then I was called by Altro Mercato. Altro Mercato is the biggest fair trade organization in Europe. They basically work with artisans that belong to the WFTO. Does anybody know what the WFTO is? You know what the WTO, which is the World Trade Organization. There is another organization called WFTO, which is World Fair Trade Organization. So these are some of the things we were producing with 20 different countries in the world. These are some photos from basically very close to Lake Titicaca in Peru. You know the lady. It's near Puno, right? And these were amazing ladies. They worked with double needles, and they made these beautiful sweaters that were in soft, undyed alpaca and had no seams. They were seamless, and they came down on the bias, so they were a bit beautiful, and the ladies were amazing. So we spent, I went to Peru so many times. I love Peru, and I love all the artisans that I met there. Here was in Ecuador with another group that was working for us. These were in Salinas on the mountains near a big volcano. And this is a beautiful story too. There is a priest, Italian priest, Padre Polo, who arrived in this place called Salinas about 45 years ago. He completely fell in love, un Salesiano, and he stayed. Like the people that he traveled with went back to Italy, and he stayed with the community, and he helped them. The first thing he taught them how to do was to make cheese. So they started a little cheese factory that now sends cheese all over South America. And then he ran into a Swiss person who very kindly donated all the machinery to make yarns. So now they have a yarn mill that makes wool, and this is peculiar because in South America you mostly find alpaca. Wool is not so often found. And so they make wool yarns that also they sell everywhere. And then they have a group of artisans that actually are doing knitting, and some of them were working with us. Vietnam, we had this in Sapa, which is in the north. We had this beautiful group of embroiderers from the Hmong, Red Hmong tribe. They would do these beautiful, beautiful embroideries, and I would always include in my designs details with these embroideries, bags, and going to visit them in their environment was absolutely fascinating. So there we were working with the red monks and also black monks. It depends on the headpiece that they wear. We had a place in Hanoi, in the city of Hanoi, that coordinated all the work with all these different artisans all over Vietnam. I had many producers in Vietnam. And this is Sabahar. Sabahar is in Ethiopia, and they reproduced, and they're doing the whole cycle of silk. And so they grow the trees, they have the worms, they have the butterflies, they dry the cocoons, then they have spinners who spin the yarn. They have weavers, and the beautiful thing is as well, as you can see here, they dye everything naturally. So at this moment, this person was dyeing a big pot of indigo that makes blue. But then they had flowers, marigold flowers for yellow. They had all these different beautiful. So with them, I made so many scarves and beautiful accessories made of Ethiopian silk. And this is a video that gives you more of an idea of what I was doing during the time. So these are the famous sheep. And these are the high mountains, saline beds. This is Padre Polo. Oh, the beautiful thing is that they would have a meeting every Monday evening where the whole community would meet in different places. It was very interesting. He said, I don't want to always meet in the church or in the, library. I want to change place and rotate because I don't want to give to any given place too much importance. They were very good, these ladies. And you have to see, to reach the place where they worked, it was like literally on top of a mountain. You had to go with a big jeep. And this is the yarn factory. But basically what Padre Polo was able to do is was able to create 2 or 3 industrial, semi-industrial realities that were giving food and sustainment to the whole community. So very, very important. This is my friend who introduced me to organic cotton originally, so I dedicate it to him. So these are the artisans from Texal. And basically, with Altro Mercato, there were a lot of different goals that were being met. Again, promote labor rights and safe working environments, ensure equal opportunity and end discrimination, protect biodiversity and natural habitats, because one of the main things of the collection was that everything had to be organic and certified and done properly. Enhance global partnerships, protect children, and protect the world's cultural and natural heritage. WFTO has 10 golden rules. Of course, there are rules about biodiversity and eco-sustainability, but a lot of the rules are about social sustainability. So making sure that people are respected, that everything is done properly. So my life in that period looked like this. I really had a lot of interesting encounters. Something that impressed me very much, especially in Nepal, was meeting a lot of social entrepreneurs. Social entrepreneurs are people that do business. Obviously, they treat their employees well. They work in a safe place. They're paid a living wage. But at the end of the year, they dedicate 10% of their profits to create activities that help the community become a better place. So some of the people I was working with had orphanages. Others had school for street children. Another one had implemented a plan of microcredit for the artisans. So all these people, today it's on a bigger scale, what we today call impact investments and impact economy. So doing business by impacting positively the people that are involved. And also solving problems. Very important. This is another project that I did in Ethiopia. At the time, I was working a lot with Franca Sozzani, who's been the direttore of Vogue Italia for 30 years. And the idea was, we work for the UN for something called Fashion for Development. So the idea, this is a mix actually of all the different projects. But the first one you saw, I'm going to explain later, this one in Ethiopia. Pinko, which is an Italian brand, asked me to do like a sustainable project in Africa, and they wanted me to redesign the Pinko bag. So I took inspiration from a special tribe that does body painting. Here we are in Ethiopia. Here we are in Peru. I'll finish when we go to it. This is again Ethiopia. Oops, sorry. Oops, what do I do? Okay, grazie. So this was a little bit of a video just showing all the different people that I met through these travels. And this is the synthesis of what I call fashion with a mission. So here we have these bags. Basically, there are tribes that live in the southwest of Ethiopia on the border with Kenya along the Omo River. And they do this beautiful body painting. They're very ancestral. They're very, very primordial. And so we talked to them and we explained the project. We asked permission to take videos there. And also we gave money to associations that are helping these tribes get through with many issues during their life. And also, I made sure that happened in order not to fall into the gap of cultural appropriation. But also, the bags were all produced in Ethiopia, in Addis Ababa. We ended up producing about 45,000 items between bags and felpe and all kind of things. And so we brought development through this project to this area in Ethiopia. This is another project. This project was done with an NGO, Italian NGO called Oikos. Oikos is present in Africa, in Tanzania, in Mozambique, and in a few other countries, but this project took place in Tanzania. What they do is they work to preserve biodiversity, Oikos, and they noticed that around the Maasai villages, because it's a very high Maasai area, all the trees and all the bushes were basically disappearing because they're so poor that the women go out, they cut down whatever grows in order to make green charcoal to sell at the market. So this activity was slowly but surely making the whole area extremely dry and extremely sterile. So they're like thinking, how can we stop this? And then they noticed that at the market, they sell they are herders. So they have sheep, they have goats, they have a few cows. So when they sell their animals, the people who buy them and then transform them into meat throw away the hide, the leather. And so they thought, this is really dumb. I mean, hide can be transformed into beautiful leather and things can be made with it. So they invested and they built a structure to treat leather totally naturally. And basically, they asked me to design bags. We went down to Tanzania and we went to visit exactly this community that was making the bags. And that was an amazing project because not only did we use the hides, we used also the women that knew how to do the famous Maasai beadings, because in all the bags we had beading details. And this stopped the women from cutting down the trees because they were making money otherwise. So it was definitely very impactful, this project. And this is a film about that project. The Maasai culture is truly amazing. They have a beautiful sense of community, very creative. You can tell also here how dry the area is. This was the facility to treat the leather. And these two guys came from Arezzo, and they have a leather treatment plant in Arezzo, so they taught them how to do it. Oh, and this Maasai, Gabriel, he had traveled to Napoli to learn how to make bags. And he came back with a lot of knowledge, and he spoke perfect Italian after 1 year in Naples. And he was very simpatico. And this was Helen, who posed as our model for the shoot. This is the market where they sell either the green charcoal or the meat. It was a beautiful, beautiful place. We had a chance to also visit one of the national parks, and the amount of animals and wildlife that they have is fantastic. So it's really, really important to keep their biodiversity and their land intact. This was a women gathering because, again, they have this beautiful sense of community, so the women of the village meet together once a week to discuss what's going on and, what can we do to make things better. And here we're talking about build knowledge and capacity to meet climate change, which is saving the trees and the bushes, protects biodiversity, and I can't see, enhance the global partnership, and facilitate sustainable infrastructure. Because the little leather plant that was built was completely sustainable with solar panels and all of that. Like I said, I also started doing projects for different brands that wanted to do something more sustainable, that were interested in Africa. So, like I said before, I went back to the Crochet Sisters, and they produced all these beautiful crochet pieces for Moschino. And the funny thing is that, so Moschino is a big company, they belong to an even bigger company, and I was in touch with all the production heads of production. And at a certain point, so the merchandise was due at the beginning of September, and in August, you couldn't get in touch with these sisters because they were in a spiritual retreat. And so go and explain the managers of Moschino, they're like, we don't know, where's the merchandise, what are we doing? And I'm like, they're praying, leave them alone, they'll make it. But it was a very funny clash of cultures and explaining the spiritual retreat to the heads of Moschino was not funny. Actually, it was. So we also produced jewelry for the collection. And also, they wanted to use wax print. Wax print is this kind of typical African printing method using wax. So I was very familiar with the wax printing facilities in Ghana. I sorted all these different patterns, they chose the patterns, and we ended up producing and consuming 25,000 meters of wax print from Ghana. So again, fashion for development, bringing work, bringing development through fashion. One reality I work with, which I love particularly, is Studio 189, which is, was founded by Rosario Dawson, the actress, and Abrima Erwa. And they do these beautiful, beautiful things in Ghana. They employ a lot of women. And their mission is also quite incredible. They work with women, they lift them out of poverty. It's a beautiful, beautiful story.
Fashion and creativity can be an agent for social change. We focus on creating jobs, supporting education, cultivating skills training, and women's empowerment in Africa. One shirt creates a job. One pattern communicates a unique tradition. One jacket supports an education. One bag is a step closer to independence. One symbol can prevent the spread of cholera. Together we can develop an industry. Studio 189, Fashion Rising.
So this is to show that there are a lot of initiatives around the world about doing fashion with a mission, transforming fashion into real impact, into positive impact, and it's possible to do it. So this is also, I have a good relationship with the UN, so I work with UNIDO, which is United Nations International Development Organization. And here was a 3-year program that we did in Egypt. We worked on organic cotton, recycled yarns from scrap denim, and education. So we worked with 2 big Italian companies. One is called Albini, and they make beautiful fabrics, especially very fine fabrics for shirts, for men, etc. And they have a factory there near Alexandria in Borg El Arab, and Filmar, which is also an Italian company that makes yarns. So basically they established these factories there quite a while ago, and they work with local farmers to help them turn their fields into organic production. This is quite difficult sometimes, because in order for a field to become suitable for organic production, it has to be left alone for 3 years, because when you cultivate with pesticides and a lot of chemical products and fertilizers, in order for all this crap to go down and settle far away from the top, it takes 3 years. The main problem here is, what do you do with the people that were working that land, that were living off that land for 3 years? You have to sustain them. You have to pay them. And so there are several organizations, one of which, in my opinion, is the best one, is Helvetas. It's a Swiss organization that works especially on the topic of organic cotton. They work in Burkina Faso, they work in many different countries in Africa, and what they do is they help the farmers during that period, during the hiatus, to let the land become organic again. And then we partnered also with a company that produces enormous amounts of denim fabric, and also they make the denim clothes. So you know that when you cut clothes, 15% of the fabric falls on the floor. In Italian it's called cascami. Cascami because it falls on the floor. So we gathered all this perfectly fine new fabric from the floor of this company, of this factory, and mechanically we recycled it into a new yarn, a recycled yarn. So we made this beautiful recycled yarn. And I worked with a lot of students there during the 3 years. This is a group of them, very interesting group of people. Every year I had a different group, and we worked on fashion, on sustainability. They made, designed a collection, and it was a very, very satisfying experience as well. And in this case, again, invest in rural infrastructure, agriculture, research, and increase the number of people with relevant skills for financial success, and ensure equal opportunities and end discrimination. So every time you do an impact project, you can really see how close it is to very many sustainable development goals, and this is super important.
5 minutes.
I have 5 minutes left?
Yeah.
You're joking. I thought I was, okay, sorry. Okay, this is something I did with Adine, she helped me. Marni, while I was working there, was asked by MoMA Museum in New York they were asked to rethink the Mao jacket. And so I went to a friend who I knew in Peru, and we found out about these tribes that made artifacts with feathers. And the interesting thing was that this design came from a painting from an Aborigine artist from Australia. So the people of this tribe, the Harambukt tribe from the Amara Kaeri region, applied their knowledge and transformed this item in something completely magical, because they put their knowledge into it and they put their magic into it. And this is the beautiful jacket. And here we have the increased number of people, relevant skills, and financial success, and protect the world's cultural and natural heritage. And then very quickly, I received a prize called Women Together Award at the UN in New York for the work I've done during the years with women throughout the world. I've written a book called La rivoluzione comincia dal tuo armadio with a friend who's a journalist talking about sustainability. I am a professor. I work in many universities in Italy and internationally. And like was mentioned before, I'm the country coordinator of Fashion Revolution, which is a movement that started in 2013 when a factory called Rana Plaza collapsed in Bangladesh near Dhaka, killing 1,138 people and wounding terribly 2,500. Our hashtag is Who Made My Clothes? So just to know that every time you buy something, someone actually produced that. And this is the tragedy of the Rana Plaza. It was a terrible, terrible moment. I started working with them in 2014. We are working with a lot of universities, a lot of schools, a lot of people, a lot of producers. Today we're in 88 countries. This is a small video. This video won the Fashion Film Festival 2 years ago. So every year on the 24th of April, we remember what happened in Bangladesh. And if you want to join us, we have our website. And we just launched, and this is the end, I promise. We just launched a new campaign, and it's a signature gathering campaign called Good Clothes, Fair Pay, because the 70 million people that work in the fashion industry and in the production chain earn something called the minimum wage, which is in these countries is below the poverty line. And so the main reason why children again go to work is because the parents don't earn enough. So we've written a law proposal that we gave to the European Parliament. And in 1 year, from the end of July, we have to gather 1 million signatures in Europe. And in Italy, I am responsible for 72,000 signatures. So we need everybody's signature, please.
Wearing good clothes means that people make them receive fair pay for their work. But right now, most textile and garment workers cannot afford to live in decent housing, eat healthy food, or go to the doctor. They even struggle to make it to school. A living wage is not a luxury, it is a fundamental human right. We demand laws that protect the human right to fair pay. We want to see a living wage for the people who make our clothes around the world. The EU has the power to change this. Help us get to 1 million signatures for good clothes fair pay. Sign up.
So if you look up Good Clothes, Fair Pay, you can sign and help us make this industry a better one. Thank you.